All right, welcome everyone. We are, this is a recorded interview. We're here with Larry Sanger, who is the founder of Wikipedia and the current president of the Knowledge Standards Foundation, including at least the project Encyclosphere. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on, agreeing to be on this interview. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well, and thanks for having me. We're making some good progress lately, and happy to talk about it. And whatever else you want to talk about.
Excellent. I have a list of questions, right, and or just interesting things that related to both Wikipedia and Encyclosphere that I kind of personally want to know, and it would be valuable, I think, for a lot of people, especially about Encyclosphere, but also about Wikipedia. Frankly, a lot of people don't know the reality of how that org or project or site works. So,
Yeah.
and there's some negatives. So, I mean, maybe we start with what have you been working on since we last spoke, which might have been at least over a year, right? A year ago.
Definitely over a year. I
Yeah.
think it might have been like even 2020, 2021. It's been a while anyway.
Yes.
We have added a lot of encyclopedia articles to what is essentially a shared database. So we're up over 2.5 million ZWI files, as they're called. So ZWI stands for zipped wiki, and it's just a file format. It's a zip file format for individual encyclopedia articles. So we're making a lot of progress there. There's so many different little things, like on the ZWI format. A new person sort of joined our circle and proposed some useful refinements. We all got on the same page, and so it's now all of the ZWI files are digitally signed using using the DID identity protocol. And that's going to be pretty important going forward for purposes of archiving and proving that information is not being edited by, for example, AI or whatever.
Right.
At least who knows how serious a problem that is, but misrepresentation of reality is already a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's growing, right?
And one of the useful points that encyclopedias can contribute against that is, well, it makes it possible to have an objective reference that is datable to a certain point, especially again if it's digitally signed. So a lot of other things. We've tried a different kind of literal search engine, and just like adding a bunch of different encyclopedia sites to that search engine, an open source thing.
Right.
It's a little rough, but if you just are interested in looking over what our projects are, I'm going to pull it up here myself. Go to encyclosphere.org/projects, and there's a list of them there.
Right.
So EncycloReader is better than ever. So is EncycloSearch. EncycloSearch now has 66 encyclopedias indexed, and over 2.5 million articles. About half of those are proprietary, which is to say we only have metadata about the articles. We don't have the articles themselves, but we also are able to search data about them. So
I found some stuff on there that was that has been removed from Wikipedia, for example, in using the EncycloSearch. So I was like, oh, okay,
awesome.
Yeah, there was an encyclopedia I didn't even know existed that had some stuff that I was looking for that used to be on Wikipedia, and so I was like, oh, so that's what when I I think it was last week, I was looking around trying to understand some of the standards and everything. I kind of I sampled it, but I looked at a couple of different things trying to figure out how. So some of that I do have some questions for
Sure.
as we go. Okay, so let's go back and say, okay, so where did you grow up? What accent am I hearing? And or slight accent. Okay, so if it's not, there's something slight, but and then what led you
Yeah. Okay.
to found Wikipedia? How did that? Because I've never asked that, and I kind of wanted to know, what led to that, and
Uh-huh.
um,
Um, well, I grew up. I was born in the Seattle area, and I
that's
grew up in Alaska.
right. Okay,
Yeah, and then I went to college at Reed College, super liberal college in Portland, Oregon, and then went to grad school at Ohio State. I've lived in a lot of other places. I play a lot of Irish traditional music, but I'm not Irish myself. Um, so, and generally speaking, when you've listened to a lot of videos and attended a lot of lectures by people from all around the world,
yeah.
one tends to get I don't know, it doesn't quite sound standard like
Oh yeah,
Midwestern American, but I imagine you might hear a little Ohio twang there
that
too. I
might
don't
be
know.
it. That might be it. Now, tell me, when you say play Irish folk music, do you mean? And by the way, I can't say folk very well. I always says like, am I say folk? I
Folk
can't say it
music,
very well.
folk music.
Um, do you mean
Yeah,
listen to? Do you mean
folk
play?
music.
What instrument?
Oh no, I play the Irish fiddle in the Irish style.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting. All right, I did not know that.
yeah.
That's good. Okay,
Um,
cool.
it's an excellent pastime. I I know many hundreds of tunes, and I've got them a fair number recorded on my YouTube channel.
Really?
So yeah,
Wow. See, I did not know that. I
mistakes
did
and
not
all.
know that. That is awesome. I'm
Yeah.
a guitarist, so but
Oh.
I have tried I was okay. I've tried to play fiddle, violin before. I have played cello before, right?
Uh huh.
But I was definitely not an expert in those areas. So but
Uh
anyway,
huh.
guitar, it's all music. Music, by the way, is really good for people getting into the software world. If you ask me, there are a few anecdotes, but I've heard some things in my career that at first kind of surprised me, but now it totally makes sense. Very,
Yeah.
it's a lot of the
Well, I
same.
think technical people, generally speaking, are often musically inclined. There is something kind of technical, but also artistic, obviously, about music, and the patterns I think that are
Yeah.
expressed in music are um, they're a little like code. I mean,
Yep.
you can reduce and not very well, but it's possible to write down um, the outline of a fiddle tune in ABC notation. There's another standard format for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I've even met people that a guy I used to work with that I asked him, how'd you get into this? He was a a Navy SIG guy, and essentially but he had to know a bunch of languages, right? And
Uh-huh.
he when he came back, he was around the house trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life, and he saw this ad for a job that said they were looking for linguists and musicians, and he went in and they gave him the job, and he asked why, and they said, well, everybody who we've hired that turned out to be good was either a linguist or a musician. So that's how they hired. It was for a coding job, and it's like that's crazy. That's really interesting, but it makes sense in the end. So, because there's a lot of art in building a system, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like Encyclosphere, like Wikipedia, like anything that I've built, it's like there's a tremendous amount of art that a lot of people don't quite, think, oh, it's engineering, it's software, but there's a lot of creativity involved.
For
So
sure. I think that's true. It's not just creative work. It's you know, seeing the whole before it
yes,
exists, and planning it out, um, executing it down to the fine details, caring about the details while
yep.
caring about the big picture. Yeah.
Yep, trying to keep it moving in the right direction, because
Hmm.
sometimes people don't understand something and it gets led astray and it's costly. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
it. That's really it. So, okay, so the founding of Wikipedia, what's the story? How did that happen?
Um, well, I've told the story so many times. I don't really want to go into it in too much detail, but
Okay.
basically, um, I had been working on different websites from about 1995 to uh, just before 2000, and I had known Jimmy Wales from even before that time. Um, but just casually, we met in person once or twice, um, due to our shared interest in Ayn Rand, as it happens. Um,
Ah,
and
okay.
yeah, um, I'm not so keen on her anymore, I suppose, but
Yeah.
yeah, and he also seems to have become much more of a let's say an establishment type. So that's interesting. Anyway, the we he got to know me well enough, and he was looking for somebody who was either a philosopher or a historian to start a free open content, before it was called open content, and encyclopedia. So the public would be able to participate. It would still be credible. He was like very clear about that, and I was totally on board with that. Um, so and so I thought, this is great. I'd love to be to start an encyclopedia. What a cool thing. Um, so that was my job, basically, to actually start what
Nice.
was called Newpedia. All right, so we got uh, about 9 months into that, and it was very clear that due to our interest in keeping it maximally credible, the editorial process that we had sort of developed and um, tried to execute via email was extremely arduous, very hard to go through. Very few people were going through it. There were lots of people, like by the end of 2000, there were like 2,000 people on the mailing list. And these were all people that I collected, you know, essentially almost by hand, by posting in different online forums. Um, Back when this sort of recruiting was really viable. I don't think it is anymore. I'd be interested to hear if anyone had ever done that. But at any rate, um, so there were all these people who were wanting to get busy, but the system that we came up with was not producing much. So a friend of mine told me about wikis, and immediately I was thinking, wow, wikis sound really interesting, implausible at first, but what if we were to just try this, because it's like free, off the shelf software, could be repurposed for writing an encyclopedia. I saw that right away. Um, so I said, okay, can you just install some free wiki software for me to play with? And so I started pre-populating it with help pages and whatnot. And um, And yeah, one thing led to another, and all those 2,000 people who were waiting to work on a free encyclopedia started descending on Wikipedia. So it got a big shot in the arm from all of those people who had been working on Nupedia, or who wanted to but just didn't really want to go through that particular process. And then the fact that it was a wiki, super easy to use, um, and because it was still the relatively early days in the internet, a lot of the pages that we were making were the first page that anyone had ever made on some basic topics. So people would, they'd do a search for a particular topic, they'd click on it, and come to the Wikipedia page, and at the top of the Wikipedia page, it'd say, "You can edit this page now." And there's an edit button. I said, "What the hell?" Click the edit button, and I'm typing and I'm editing this text. Is this real? I'm going to hit save now, and lo and behold, my edit has saved. I didn't even have to log in. What the hell is this? So this is the attitude that people had. They thought it was like, there were people who thought that it was absolutely cool, and then of course there were a lot of people who thought this couldn't possibly work. This is laughable, and they were laughing at us a lot. But so I basically, um, with a heavy heart, shall we say, um, felt myself felt it necessary to just basically stop spending so much time on Nupedia and start working on Wikipedia. And it really took off, obviously, in the first year, and I just kept growing at that rate. And then Jimmy Wales laid me off because he lost the ability to pay me. Basically, the the there were a whole bunch of new hires for Bombus, the company, and Jimmy Wales was the CEO. Wikipedia was one of the projects of Bombus. All right. So this wasn't like the only thing Jimmy Wales was doing. Jimmy Wales was sort of like a relatively distant overseer, because we weren't even in the same state when it was getting started. I had actually moved to Nevada. Um, and Yeah, but at any rate, that's how it got started.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, even with where it's ended up, I mean, the history is pretty amazing because, like you say, I mean, early internet was a super interesting place in the early '90s. That was just,
Sure.
people say Wild West, but it was, in my opinion, more than that, because it was very one of those things where anything can be done, but we have to do a lot of technical. There are a lot of things that haven't been solved. There are a lot of there are even technologies that didn't exist yet that were needed to
Yeah,
do some
yeah.
of the things.
Like
So yeah,
JavaScript in web pages,
yeah,
for example.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And compression. I mean, there are so many things that were just not there yet. So there were a lot of limitations. But um, I think
Mhm.
the fact that it wasn't yet captured by the big guys, there was no big tech. It was just it's just a bunch of hobbyists
Yeah.
or nerds doing stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was very nerdy. There were a lot of people still, even still, who are like associated with the military in the
right,
earliest days,
right,
like in the early 90s. And then, yeah, there were people who were basically, you didn't have to be a programmer to be on the internet. Obviously, there were lots of
right.
people who had AOL. We made fun of them, the
Yeah,
people who like can't, are not able to leave the AOL walled garden.
yes,
Um, but yeah, and like it was a very normal thing to like uh, edit HTML by hand, by yourself.
yes,
Um, and just like you learn it, it wasn't hard because there
yeah.
wasn't much to HTML yet. So,
You can test it real quick. I mean, you edit some stuff, you open it, and you're like, oh, something's broken. That was
right,
kind of the way, right? So
right, right, right.
very interesting. So okay. So that was in place, and I actually didn't realize even that separation of the new piece. So thanks for that. That's great. So at what point did it start looking like things had gone awry, or there were, because there were always the like say the and I usually discounted them, the academics who would say, you can't trust that, anybody could edit it, right? Because I always thought that was kind of an elitist angle, that you're just like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not an academic and I know more about this subject than anyone else, so theoretically it should be okay. But at the same time,
Yeah,
what
there was
happened?
a lot of anti-elitism on Wikipedia. I complained about that fairly early on myself, but now I think they have the opposite problem insofar as basically academia really always has been, for the most part, an establishment, a tool of the establishment for
Mhm.
consolidating public opinion or just thought in general. Um, I think it's certainly more that now than anything, and Wikipedia has come to reflect that. At first, it was more of like the Wild West. There were all kinds of people felt perfectly comfortable participating, regardless of their politics,
Mhm.
even of their like personal digital hygiene. There were a lot of crazies involved in Wikipedia in the early days, um, and it was. Let's just say, like the problems that we were dealing with in the first few years were mostly just like quality and just
Mhm.
getting the article numbers up there, the coverage.
Yeah.
Um, but after a few years, after I had left, actually, um, it started looking and acting like a real encyclopedia. Like you would do a search for any traditional encyclopedia type topic, and there would not only be an article there, it would actually be a reasonably good article. It would look like an encyclopedia article. It would even have footnotes, um, although they weren't used as such an elaborate way as they are now until later. But it was, and the neat thing, the thing that was different about Wikipedia, um, which I guess I'm a bit proud of, is that in the first like 5 years or so, um, but then tailing off after that, Wikipedia articles on controversial topics made a real effort to represent the full range of opinion on the topics,
Mhm.
um, and which is A, important, and B, surprising. It was unusual. People would like go to the page and say, not only is this a good article, but they actually say that about global warming, or they say that about,
Mhm.
the 9/11. They're actually giving voice to conspiracy theories. Um, but that's and then things really started going sideways, I would say, in terms of really blatant, obvious bias between about 2005 and 2010.
Yep.
By 2010, I think I even said at the time, it has about the approximate level and type of bias as the BBC. So
Yeah,
sort of
that's pretty bad. Yeah.
snooty and stodgy sounding, but left leaning for sure.
Mhm.
But still making a show, a sort of attempt to be fair to the people that they disagree with. Um, but the thing is, I saw the problems, or some problems that led to these problems, um, as soon as they arrived, essentially, which was in the first year, basically.
Mhm.
In the first 6 months or so of the project, it was dominated by those old Newpedians. So a lot of academics, which are admittedly on the left, but on the other hand, at least it used to be, they weren't activists, right?
Right.
They really had. Now that's changed, I think, for the most part, at least in many fields. But they really had a strong concern about getting the facts right, and they understood things like fairness and so forth,
Hmm.
intellectual charity, and um, so and that changed when we were slash dotted a couple of times.
Ah,
Yes, so you
yes.
know what it means to be slash dotted. Probably most people listening to this don't know what it means, but back in 2001, Slashdot was like the big tech blog. And I don't know if there was any bigger. Um, and if a page, a post about your project made it to the front page of Slashdot, then it was very normal for the site to go down under the load of the
Yeah.
traffic, and that essentially happened to Wikipedia a couple of times. But the people who frequented Slashdot um, tended to be, uh, let's just say, libertarian left. That's how I would
Yeah.
describe them. A lot of anarchists.
Hmm.
Um, and they brought their anarchism to Wikipedia. They essentially regarded it as a I don't know, as like their project. At least I think that's how a lot of them thought about it. It's like this it was Wikipedia was emblematic of everything that they stood for. They really, really wanted it to reflect their anarchism, essentially. They didn't want there to be any sort of authority in the project. They didn't like rules of any sort. Um,
Yeah.
and if you put any and I was the closest thing to to authority, but I'm a libertarian. I was even more libertarian back then. So like I was hostile to the rules myself. I'm the guy who came up with the um, ignore all rules policy.
Nice.
The ignore all rules rule. Um,
Nice.
so and of course they don't follow that anymore. Um, but at any rate. Um, so yeah, and from there, basically, I think the left started noticing, the activist left started noticing Wikipedia more and more, and it really was downhill from there in terms of
Makes sense.
um, the bias.
Right.
Um, yep.
Right. I mean, it makes sense too because an activist looking at it, I think it was almost a shortcut to a lot of different groups
Yeah.
because an active article in Wikipedia would rank high on a Google search. So
Sure.
somebody just casually looking for something on some subject would almost always get the Wikipedia entry
Hmm.
in the first, the first few links, and therefore it was very influential. And I guess it might still be.
Yeah.
I haven't paid attention lately if they're still. I think they are though. Um,
Think
it will
they're what?
still it will still populate high. It'll still rank high on a Google search.
Oh, of course. Oh,
So it's an
for sure.
interesting thing, and therefore, and I'm wondering if because I'll let on about an anecdotal, at least what I discovered about Wikipedia
Hmm.
um, in my current role. But I mean, what do you know about who, other than just activists? Because I've seen info. I've even seen training videos from some groups where they actively bring people in and train them how to navigate the Wikipedia economy and get their agenda in the article. So I mean, who do
Yeah.
you know, like nation states? not that you'd have to name any in particular, but
It's interesting that you should say this, because I myself intend, after this talk, to make a training video for the new Encyclosphere wiki. Now, this is not an encyclopedia. This is like it's a documentation wiki for the Encyclosphere project. And I got to make a training video for the
nice.
participants. It's very, yes, it's certainly it's organized, and I think as Wikipedia's influence grew, it increasingly got the attention of some very powerful people, and how could it not have, been, let's just say, how could certain operations to control the message not have been well funded?
Right. With unlimited money, no less. So yeah, because and I'll say, when we went in, and we were very passive about it at first. They had someone had put in a Dragonchain article, so we're like, okay, that's cool, and we did at least. I can't remember if we edited it. I think we did. I know we improved it. There were some things that were not correct, and it's kind of funny, because it I think on the good side, that oftentimes, especially when I was still at Disney, for example. Apologies to everyone. I'm not a Disney person, just
okay, I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
That when I was still at Disney, someone would write an article and they would have all this speculation in there. Oh, Dragonchain, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and we can't really do anything. But on Wikipedia, at least, when someone would post something that was absolutely off the mark, we could go in there and correct it. Right? That's a positive thing.
When was this? When did the Dragonchain article get started?
Would have been sometime after 2016 when we open source.
See,
I
even
don't
by
know.
2016, they had already started seriously locking down who could have an article and who could participate. That got to be a thing really seriously around, I don't know, I'd say between 2008 and 2015. Wow. Yeah, okay. 2015. By then, it's like people I remember complaining about how hard it was to get involved in Wikipedia. And it's like, it's not like the old days. They were saying that 10 years ago.
Yeah. There was a lot of, I remember when I was even in, prior places that, I had edited things that I was interested in, edited some articles, and I ended up stopping because it seemed to be so snobby. Like, it's like, I know this, I'll put it in there, but it's like, oh, you aren't, who are you? Right. Like, so I kind of stopped doing that myself.
Yeah,
but,
they have shooed away so many people with their totally toxic and dysfunctional culture.
Yes. It feels like post on Reddit now. Reddit is a horrible place.
Reddit is very similar to Wikipedia.
Yes. Right, a lot of the same people. So we saw at some point, and I think it was in 2020, that some particular Wikipedia editor, or whatever their title is, had something against crypto for some reason. Yes, me is probably paid by the bank.
They took the article down, didn't they?
Yeah, but they took down, and they went across all of the different crypto projects and just took them all down one by one by one. And so we were like, we inquired with, I can't remember who, our people reached out to people inside, and we're like, are we supposed to do anything? And what we got back was really interesting, that essentially there is this weird black economy behind the scenes, where you can pay the people that can vote on the edits, but you can't tell anyone.
That's right.
You can't tell anyone you're doing it. You pay them, and they vote in your favor, and you have to be able to pay enough of them and know who's who. And we're like, well, we actually contracted with one guy
I've heard this. Yes.
to help us figure out, but we didn't we didn't pay, we didn't have the budget to do that. And I was like, well, whatever. And they went through all of them, and there was one other crypto Hoskinson made a big deal about it. You can still see some of his
Right.
videos about that. And I imagine that he just made a big donation to to the foundation or something. And I don't know. I don't know what happened, right? But
Hmm.
that's what goes on in the real world. So anyway, it's just an interesting thing. And I'm like, man, why does everything have to devolve to lawyers and bankers? Everything, the entire world is made up nothing but bankers and lawyers. That's it. It's like if you're not a banker or lawyer, or have a friend that's a banker or lawyer, or have a banker and lawyer that is invested in your project, it's like, well, just forget about it. Just,
Yep.
forget about it.
And
Sorry.
spies and the mafia.
Mm,
It's
yep.
it's all it's there's different aspects of these things that are at close to the top.
Yes.
So yes,
It's kind of sad in the world.
it
So,
is indeed.
okay. So now we move to Encyclosphere, because I want to know, what can you tell us, like, say, about Encyclosphere and the knowledge standards. But by the way, is Encyclosphere one project of knowledge standards? I guess kind of my assumption that that's the arrangement.
So, well, the mission of the Knowledge Standards Foundation is to foster the growth of the Encyclosphere. The Encyclosphere with a lowercase e is a collection of all the encyclopedias. Okay, that's
Cool.
all. Just like the blogosphere is a collection of all the blogs. And then Encyclosphere with a capital E is those encyclopedias that we happen to have in our shared database, or in one of our databases
Okay.
that are interlinked. That's the idea. Um, and then the Encyclosphere also would refer to the search engines, the readers for these articles, also the network technology that we've developed for exchanging ZWE files, the ZWE specification itself, and some other stuff. There's quite a bit of software that we've developed. It's all open source. Well, almost all. And so basically everything that you could need to make your own aggregator, encyclopedia aggregator, and to crawl encyclopedias, it's all available for
Okay.
free. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you say, because this is some of the stuff, when I was looking, I wanted to understand better, and hopefully it's interesting everybody, that so
So
all of these encyclopedias that are included in that in the Encyclosphere, are they the data itself? Is it hosted? It's hosted in a decentralized way, like, say,
yeah.
that encyclopedia hosts its own data, but it's a part of the Encyclosphere, correct?
We want to have encyclopedias post their own ZWE files, basically publishing their own, being their own nodes, essentially.
Yes.
But I think we haven't asked too much, very hard. The the software is under active development, and it's possible to do what we ask. It's just it's I wouldn't say it's a heavy lift. It isn't a heavy lift, but it takes time. It takes a number of hours and a commitment. And I'm sure that a lot of publishers just wouldn't see the value in it yet. So we're doing it for them at this point. But I think there will come a time when the database is just so enormous and used by so many different apps and whatnot, because whoever runs an aggregator also runs an API. And you
Yeah.
can build on the API.
Okay.
And they encourage it too. So you could make in fact, we would love it if somebody would do this too. Make a a plugin for, or not a, well, yes, we do have a plugin for browsers, but just,
Yes, I saw that.
yeah, just apps would be nice for various devices. Yeah,
Okay.
don't even have but you would, in order to run one, you wouldn't have to like. All you'd have to do is tie into the API that already exists.
Right.
So,
That's nice. Okay. Okay.
or
And
one of them, and they're independent too. So it's not like most quote unquote decentralized projects,
yeah.
where there's like one code base, one company
Yeah.
behind it, and so forth. It's actually two independent people. If one of them were to die, the Encyclosphere would continue to exist. They written in different programming languages, and they actually have to negotiate about aspects of the standards,
Right.
and which is exactly how it should be. And it's interesting enough that now there's like other programmers who've gotten involved and who have established their own aggregators. They're not as well developed as the original two, but they're getting there, I think.
Okay. Yeah, and that's I will say, I mean, uh, I hadn't thought about it much, but it does feel, when you're looking through the standards, looking through the applications, um, it does frankly feel a lot more like the old good internet. And when I say, I mean, it's the model is much more organically decentralized. Is probably the way I would say it. That it's just, yeah, somebody's building something. I'm going to build something. They kind of interact, and
Hmm.
it's a
Yes.
much more flexible system than a lot of what people deal with these days. So, um,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
100% by design.
that's
Um,
great.
yeah, I mean, I could tell if you're interested, I could tell you about how that came to be because it has an
Sure,
explanation.
sure. Yeah, definitely,
My
definitely.
my son, who is now 17, he was 15 at the time, wrote the first encyclopedia meta search engine
I remember
for
that.
us. Yes. And then Sergei Chekhanov, who is a CERN physicist, but his main specialization is information processing,
Hmm,
of
that
the
makes sense.
CERN data.
Yeah.
And so he's very, very good as a developer, and he'd already been working on encyclopedia projects. So he actually took Henry's, that's my son, code and improved it, iterated it, forked it basically. And Henry's like, I don't really want to go in the direction that he's going. And said, good, good. You continue
Totally.
developing what you're doing, and Sergey will continue doing what he did. And so Sergey eventually said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make a standard for one file per encyclopedia article. That the
Beautiful.
standard is going to be at the article level." And then Henry wrote a reader, and Sergey he made a search engine and a reader before Henry did. Then Henry immediately took the files and said, "Oh, well, this is easy. All I have to do is like display the HTML and make sure that the CSS is rendering correctly."
Yep.
Um, and so then they were off to the races, essentially, practically, literally. They were competing with each other, but in a very friendly way. Um, Sergey handling certain encyclopedias and Henry handling other encyclopedias. And Henry was writing in Java and Sergey was writing in PHP and
Hmm.
something else. And Henry's now rewriting it in JavaScript, um, or TypeScript. And yeah, so we have people who have installed their own software. And there's another guy who made his own search engine and reader, um, who made a and if you just got the ZWI files, it's just a zip file with the HTML, the images, the CSS,
Hmm.
and metadata. And then now there's also archiving capabilities, so you can have older versions of the HTML.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's all zipped together per article,
So
basically.
even the history, the article change history is in the same ZWI file?
It's starting to be, let's put it that way. Yeah, and Sergey just in the last couple of months has finally written a diff displayer.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Okay, that's
So
great. And I mostly want to know how Sergey spells Berenstein Bears. That's what I want to know. So, because I don't know if you've ever asked him that, but you've failed if you've not asked him. We'll ask you next time. All right.
Okay, I'll ask him next time.
Um, is there a question that pops up because they are decentralized in hosting and because of the nature of censorship and everything else going? And I imagine the groups that are currently commandeering Wikipedia articles will take interest in this project if they haven't already.
Well, if they are, they're not showing it.
Right. It's probably, it's probably maybe early, right? But
Yeah, I think so.
What
But I think it's not too early for them to have taken an interest. I
they have
guarantee
unlimited
that
money.
they have.
Yeah, they have unlimited money. So I guarantee they have at least one person
Oh
on
yeah.
it, right? So is there a way to mirror, because or even
Oh yeah.
not necessarily mirror the entire because exponential, but selectively, like
Oh,
let's say if
it's
I'm okay.
oh we'll go to town with this here. If you look down here on the floor there,
Uh-huh.
see the black box there.
Yes. Here, I'm gonna
Henry has been building us a literal home server. Like I've got my own NAS here, but that's for family stuff. This is going to be our own copy of all of
okay.
the Encyclosphere files. Sergey has recently set up what he calls just add encyclo to whatever it is, and that's the name of it, encyclo backup, and it's also an API. It runs an API,
Okay.
so it's essentially another aggregator.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
so it's backed up in on multiple servers,
okay.
and not just that. Like I said, there's a couple of other people who are committed now to making their own backups. And this is relevant because I don't know, it's not related to us, I'm sure, but on Christmas Eve, our internet host was, they say, attacked,
Mm,
and the Encyclosphere, well, the Encyclo search went down because it was uh, on the host.
mhm.
Cloud South is the name of the host, and we're moving soon, but Sergey's server was still up, of course, because it's on a completely different host.
Yeah.
That's also by design.
Okay.
So we actually would love it, if anyone who can afford it um, can like and has the technical ability, um, if they would just work with us to do the work to essentially be another node, another
Okay.
aggregator.
Okay.
Basically, by aggregator, I actually mean what you could mean by backup. But
Okay.
Henry has one set of ZWI files. Sergey has another set of ZWI files due to their own personal policies, which I am happy to let them decide themselves. They don't. They only overlap. They're not exactly the same. Henry
Okay.
has.
Yeah, because that's good. Because
Yeah.
and I would wonder if that was it would at least, if it isn't already, in the future, if that were a part of the standard, so that effectively in your config file, I'm going to host my own articles that that we've developed or whatever,
Mhm.
but I could either in collaboration or just because it's like, oh, those are valuable entries. If I could just configure it so it would automatically pull them, and then I would
Yeah.
I imagine if I hit on a search that it would show me the main article, signed by creator or whatever else. But then also here, 3 mirrors, right? Something like that would be nice.
I don't know that the guys have done that. Like I'm feeling lucky, sort
Oh
of
yeah.
option. Uh,
Well, I mean, it could be based upon network distance. You could do,
right.
but at the same time, it could literally just be, if this one's down, you can always click on
Oh,
whatever,
right. Yeah.
So
We have talked about that. It's on our extremely limited budget. It's hard to do that and
yeah,
many other things. But
yes,
we actually have a guy, um, an American in Eastern Europe. I think he's American. He's a very international sort of fellow,
mhm,
um, who has again joined us, and he wants to do like some load balancing sorts of stuff like
okay,
that. And we also we have um, we have experimented with both IPFS and torrent. So
okay,
that fellow, the guy from Eastern Europe, um, is he has put, I don't think it's all of them, but quite a few of those WE files on IPFS.
okay,
Yeah, and has made a neat, basically showed off the IPFS capabilities when you're like working with Cloudflare. Basically, Cloudflare will host IPFS files essentially for you. And then you can just like almost use that as an API. Not that we're going to depend on that. I'm getting into the
oh yeah,
technical
oh no,
details
that's
here.
great though. Yeah, that's
Uh,
great. No, and it's just kind of, for me, it's this level of, and I'll get to some of this towards the end on what can people do to help, because there are a bunch of things that I would offer, but I don't want to step on feet, number one. And
don't
I
worry about
similarly
that.
kind of a
Don't
low
worry about
budget,
that.
right? I
And
don't
here,
have I don't have the total resources, but at the same time, I'd be willing to, hey, and I mean, what
well,
I
money
do
will
is
always help.
time.
Money will always help.
If we get funding, I'll come back to you and say, okay, here's what I
Okay.
want to build, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
So look at, go to the URL. Maybe you can share that with people.
yes,
But
it'll be
this is
in
going to be where we're going to have for the diehards, the potential diehards who actually want to get involved and do something.
there. Hmm.
We're creating a learning site for them. It's or
That's
documentation,
good.
whatever,
Very
with a
good.
lot of pointers to everything. I mean, that's what encyclosphere.org right now is, but it's public facing for people who just like want to learn the basics, not for
Hmm.
the people who really want to get involved. But the wiki is going to be like a technical wiki, a
Okay.
technical project
Yeah.
wiki.
Yeah.
Um,
Because, for instance, we have a lot of articles that potentially should fit into, and creating a ZWI file out of them,
sure,
because they are, and they're very esoteric niche things about blockchain, what's possible, but
that's
that's,
okay.
that's needed, right? So, and so, yeah, I was already going to reach out and say, hey, how do I, because there were a couple of values in the standard file that I wasn't certain exactly what they were, what they should
Oh,
be, right? So some of the things,
that'd be
so if you
really
could,
cool if you could actually create the ZWI files yourself. I mean, but we can do all kinds of things here.
okay, okay,
We can crawl your website for you and sign the articles ourselves.
okay.
Um, we can give you this. We would prefer this. You can crawl the articles yourselves,
Hmm.
and then um, but then what you would have to do in order to use the software is also install or create rather a digital identity, a DID
Hmm.
identity.
Right.
So we use the DID PSQR public square
Yeah. Okay.
standard. And the reason we use that is that it is one of the only truly open digital identity standards, because the identity lives on um, HTTPS, so it lives on the web. So basically, you can refer to the public key at a certain address, at a certain standardized address, and so like you could do that. You could put your public key up on like a Dragonchain website, and then you can use the DID, the digital ID, to sign the ZWI files, and
Okay.
then you can like we'll find some way to push the files. You could actually do it automatically if you use other software that we have. So there's something
Yeah.
called ZWI Node, which
Okay.
ZWI Node is intended to be like a sort of full service sort of thing. But it doesn't actually have the ability um, to crawl other sites. You'd actually have to put the articles into the ZWI Node platform itself.
Okay.
But
Okay. Okay.
anyway,
No, that's good. That's good because those are some of the, because I saw that there was a crawler. I saw there was like say a WordPress plugin. There were some other things. I'm like, oh, so you definitely working towards those directions where people can plug them in and host content they already have or add content in a way that'll
yeah, like
support all
I
stuff.
actually wrote a very long encyclopedia article about a local park, put it on my blog, and
Okay.
I pushed the article from my blog to Encyclo search, and
Okay.
I think it might be on Encyclo Reader by now. I hope so. Chestnut Ridge Metro Park is the name of the park, and
Okay.
da, 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 da. No,
Yeah.
it isn't up there yet. But at any rate, you search on any search engine now, and interestingly enough, my article appears. Okay, and this is something I want to like emphasize. It's like it's important. Um, uh, Basically, there's a long tail of topics that there are not very many articles about
Yeah.
online at all by anyone, or that on which there's only a Wikipedia article.
Right.
Even still, like Wikipedia is
Oh
the
yeah.
only source, or there is no source for articles on those topics. And you can be the first still in 2024. And the neat thing is now there is a way to get them into a truly decentralized network.
Nice.
And when you do that, this is the cool thing. This is like what I get excited about. When you do that, it will live forever because these the files. If you've declared that it is indeed open content, it's going to be Creative Commons licensed. That means it can exist and is intended to exist in multiple copies online. And we actually have a way for those copies to exist online. It's an archiving technology also.
Nice. Nice. And by the way, I mean, maybe I can get involved in some of those ways because there are, like, say that the time stamping, um, in a scalable way, free getting stuff on chain even,
Mhm.
um, with even edits, all those, and then governance, right? And I kind of want to know
Okay.
how you are preparing for what might be, they might be attacks, they might not be attacks, but things that could go wrong, especially with people. So you never know who's behind stuff or why or anything else. But
Well,
I at least I quoted
mhm.
you. Thank you again, because I asked you. I quoted you in an article in Cointelegraph, and it was
Oh,
particularly important, and mostly because governance is, we all know, a very important thing in the world, for a lot of reasons. And so, uh,
agreed.
what happened at Wikipedia, for example, and how do you handle things like that? If somebody posted something that is a properly standard article, but is maybe not wanted, right?
Yeah.
How do you handle that right now, and what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, so first of all, it is a decentralized network. Anyone who runs an aggregator is responsible for deciding basically what will appear in their aggregator. And already, Sergey has decided, I don't want this and I don't want that. And
Right.
Henry has said that he's willing to have them. And it's, well, because he's still a minor, it's legally, it's still, it'd be me who's
Be careful.
making that decision for Encyclosearch. But when he turns 18, I think I'm going to transfer the domain to him.
Yep.
And because again, as I say, I want this to take on a life of its own, and I want there to be, multiple ZWI file generators, and there's some people I know who are willing to include everything up to what is positively illegal in their jurisdiction. So I don't want to publish anything illegal in the United States. I certainly will never publish anything that is like pornographic. I just have a hard rule against that. If somebody else wants to make an encyclopedia of porn and make an aggregator of that, they are free to do so. There's nothing in our processes or anything that would stop them from using the technology that way. That's and for that matter, again, it is theoretically possible for somebody to put positively illegal content. It's just that obviously we wouldn't be a part of that. We couldn't possibly, and they, So hopefully that doesn't happen.
I'm with you there.
Anytime soon.
Right. No, I'm with you on that, because it's, I mean, the where I stand on that, and likewise, I used to be, or at least considered myself a libertarian, or at least very, but I kind of pulling back from that. I don't know, probably some of the same reasons as you, but that there is a difference between some there's definitely some content that I'm definitely opposed to, that is illegal, and for obvious reasons you can probably guess, but there's also a lot of content that in some places of the world is illegal, that is literally just textual speech. It's just written word, that I'm very much against that being illegal. So it's just always an interesting thing. And the West is, if you maybe we could get into the state of the world, but the West is even falling into some crazy traps that I would have never expected, like memes being illegal, and certain
there's a lot of people who are coming out of college never having learned even basic American civics, and anything about the Constitution, anything about the American civic religion of liberty, and the rest of it.
It's sad. I mean, we've gotten rid of by my generation, they didn't teach Latin anymore. I always kind of so I tried as much as a layperson could to pick up whatever I could. I was a big history buff,
I teach my sons Latin. We homeschool, so
brilliant, excellent. That is amazing. I did not. That's really good. So some of that stuff is, so I'll ask you if you're okay. I'll go, and unless you need to end, because we are at an hour, I can stop now. We could come back.
We can go some more. This is interesting.
Maybe another 10, 15, something. I won't. Okay. You tell me at any point, you're like, hey, Joe, I'm done. I'm thirsty. I need to get out of here, whatever. I'm
Okay.
good. Okay. So I'm going to say just from following you on Twitter, right. And, from talking to you a little bit before, I mean, you're a Christian, right? You're a devout Christian, I assume, right?
I am now. I think
Okay.
the last time that we talked, I was, well, let's just say a newer Christian than
Really?
I am
See,
now.
I wouldn't have thought. Okay. I didn't know that. That's interesting. All right.
Yeah,
That's good. So,
I wasn't converted until 20,
huh.
spring of 2020, I would say.
Okay. So what caused and what prompted what? And you don't have to. You tell me, hey, none of your business. I'm okay.
No. You, Joe, you're the first person to ask on camera.
Okay. Good deal. Good
So
deal.
I'm going to give you the, I'm going to give you the first crack at this, I guess. I'm going to take the first crack at that question. I'm actually writing a blog post about this because I figure it's time. I've been writing a book called God Exists. It's up to like 430 pages. It's very serious philosophy. And I've got a PhD in philosophy,
Yeah,
so I
you
sort of,
are a philosopher, right? So
so
it's
I wanted to actually explain the the arguments that helped convince me. It's not just arguments that did it. But okay, so a little bit of background. I try not to take too long. But I grew up in the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. My dad was an elder even when I was a little kid
Hmm.
in our church before we moved to Alaska. Um, and then I was even, confirmed there. Um, and then, my parents got divorced. We stopped going to church. Around 14 or 15, I think I had just stopped thinking about God altogether. And the next time I thought about God, it's like, I don't really believe that anymore, do I? Um, and that's pretty much how it happened. Um, but then I had taken a class in philosophy in high school that made me question everything, which I was already inclined to do.
Yeah.
In fact, I thought that it was very important to do so. Seek the truth was my motto, with a capital T. Um, and that's why I became a philosopher.
Hmm.
And I became quite set in my agnosticism. I was never an atheist. I never believed that God does not exist. And I also would say that I took it as a somewhat live option, not a very live option, but a somewhat live option that God could exist. I just didn't think about it very much because um, and I said I was obligated by my own methodological skepticism. That's the word, right? Methodological skepticism.
Yeah.
Um, it's the methodology of withholding belief about something in order to better arrive at the truth, essentially.
Right.
Um, so I thought I was obligated to be as close to on the fence as I could.
Hmm.
But to be quite honest, I didn't take it all seriously. Um, so and one thing led to another, and I had kids, and I began to realize that it wasn't all about me. That I would live for them and for my wife, and that it's very important to bear in mind that it's for their interest, not for my self-interest, right? And so then, Ayn Rand went out the window as a
Yeah.
result there.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was noticing with the rise of the new atheism that so many atheists were just assholes. I mean, just absolute um, uh, intolerable, um, and they thought they were being smart, but I actually have taught philosophy of religion. I knew what I was talking about when I would criticized arguments for the existence of God, which I did. Um, and I realized that after a while that um, I might actually have been um, taken in a certain way by the social milieu that I grew up in, despite the fact that, as I say, I was operating under the methodology of skepticism, right? Methodological skepticism was my general methodological approach in philosophy. And I thought I was very much committed to reason, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the interesting thing is, though, I noticed a lot of the people that I liked happened to be Christians. It's like, that's interesting. Like, I don't really get along very well with the atheists, first of all, and that I mean, that's not an argument for the existence of God. I'm not saying it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
but there are also a lot of people there that are actually genuinely smart, and in some cases not just smart but truly brilliant, who believe in the existence of God and who even take the Bible seriously, like, Sir Isaac Newton, just for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. Yeah. Some good
um,
names.
so I thought perhaps um, I ought to take it a little more seriously than I do. Um, and then the Epstein stuff happened in 2019, and how that's relevant is kind of weird, but I think it's worth saying. I don't mind saying it, and I think from experience, I happen to know that a lot of people will resonate with this. But we all saw the little temple on Epstein's island, right? And we heard about how they are, uh, you know, what horrible things it is rumored they do with children, and who some of them um, have done for a long time. Of course, I thought, well, that's just a few people with really shocking proclivities, and we catch we catch them when or most of them anyway. Um, no, 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 no. If you actually look at the evidence, there are multiple powerful networks around the world, and I'm not saying they're like giant, like everybody's in them networks, but they're multiple. In other words, like a dozen at least that we know of, and powerful. In other words, involving powerful people,
Yeah.
and they're not, for the most part, caught. They're suspected. There's a lot of really good evidence out there, and it is known that they do these things, but they haven't been made to pay for them, right?
Yep.
These people, here's the point. There's also a lot of evidence. I mean, it's insane to say, but there's a lot of evidence that these sorts of people, they tend to be occultists. Like, they seriously believe in, not it's not just that they're not Christian, or
Yeah.
they're like atheists, like, which is what I would have expected. They're occultists. They
Right.
actually do believe in a spirit world,
And
right?
and they have an aversion to
Yeah.
Christianity, right? I
So
mean,
a friend of mine like tried to persuade me that all of this stuff was real, right? That there's like power is wielded in secret, and a lot of the power that is wielded in secret is wielded through secret organizations which resemble occult organizations, or they have explicitly occult beliefs, like the Freemasons, you know.
right.
Okay. Or at least symbology, like the Freemasons.
Right.
Okay, so so the problem then is I did not want to read the stuff that he was sending me, right? He or like books that he was inviting me to read that would like because it was like a cult. It just made me feel
It's disturbing.
icky. It was disturbing stuff.
Mhm.
Even if it's just like a description of their beliefs, even if it's a description of the movements. When you learn a description of the movement, you're actually learning about what they believe. You're learning 50% of what they
Yeah.
believe. I just And then there's one thing that I realized. I learned enough about that stuff to realize this. Those people, their belief systems are based on the Bible. They're perversions of the Bible, and
Mhm.
they take it seriously, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these people actually call themselves Luciferians,
Yeah.
right? Um, which, in other words, okay, does that mean it's like taken as a symbol? Okay, yeah, maybe some of, not all of them, some of them think it's real, right?
Mhm.
And these are very powerful people. So I thought, okay, I'm going to read the Bible. If I'm going to learn something about what they believe, then at least, isn't it time? I've never read the Bible all the way through from the beginning to the end. I'm supposed to be an educated person. I've never done that. Isn't that important? And by the way, I not only proved that that was true. I didn't know how true it was until I had actually read the Bible all the way through. Like, if you want to call yourself educated, um, you need to do that. Read the Bible, not just a little bit, all the way through from the beginning to the end, and try to understand it. So it's going to take a while. It'll take a year. I did it in 100 days, but you need to do it.
Nice.
Um, if you're going to be, again, if you're going to call yourself truly educated, all the educated people before the 20th century did this,
Right.
right? All
Right.
of them knew their Bible backwards and forwards, all of them
Mhm.
in the Western world. Um, so, and that's why,
I mean,
art
that's
is, it can make references to Bible stories, obscure Bible stories. Everybody understood what it was.
right. Right. Yeah, that's interesting. But Western art, especially. I mean, the fact that how influential uh, one person or at least a group of people have been on, and I because what you described it's interesting because myself, I had similar experience, and a lot of people have described it as you might not believe this, but they do, right? And you might think that they're great, but they believe it when they're doing these things.
Yeah, I know.
That they're,
Yes,
and it's because I had the same thing. I thought, okay, they're just evil people doing things that are maybe even like Epicurean. It's like, oh, they're doing it because they
exactly,
they enjoy it
exactly.
or something. They're atheists, but no, they're and much the same. And I don't want to
They were
pollute
just
too much of
sophisticates.
this. And yeah, as it developed, similarly, I try to stay out of some subjects because they are too disturbing, of course. But at the same time, I try to understand at least some of it so I know what to watch out for, or
Yeah,
who might be coming after us or whatever. But
right.
I've gotten very I mean, I would say some a bit depressed on how the world is today, and some bit
Hmm.
maybe uh, not necessarily positive about the future. Trying not to try. I'm trying to like look towards. Oh, there's still people out there that are good people. Yet when you look at, I was going to ask you, what do you think about what's happening in the world right now? Is so much war, so much,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of those things, and even if you go back in history, blood sacrifice is that these same groups assassinating people, starting wars, and I think it's more than just what the typical um, red pilled human being would. It's like it's obviously a money game. It's like, okay, they're starting wars so they can profit, but I think it's more than that. I think they're profiting, in their opinion, in their realm. They're definitely
Hmm.
profiting financially, but I think they're also profiting on that blood sacrifice, and that's half the, if not more than the money reason that a lot of
Hmm.
this stuff happens, and it's
Yes.
really dark. So
It is. It is. So, well, I mean, and what 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 happened is that I just decided I didn't. I wanted to read something for bedtime reading, um, and it wasn't like any. I hadn't decided. In fact, I hadn't even thought about all of that stuff for a few months, right? I was just looking for something to read, and I said, well, why not the Bible? Okay, sure, the Bible.
Nice.
So I started doing it, and like I got several chapters into it, and I said, wait a minute, I want to take this a little more seriously, and like try to actually understand it. Like because it's possible to read it in a way where like you just let the words wash over you, and you're not making use of the resources that you could in order to find out what it means. So I started doing that. Like I started looking at various, like I bought a study Bible, well, a digital study Bible, and I started looking at maps and just looking up everything that I didn't understand. If there were like concepts that seemed to be important, like there would be a reference to a concept in a note for a series of verses, like redemption, or sanctification, or whatever, and I'd go and look it up in a good encyclopedia of Bible encyclopedia, and lo and behold, I probably got I got into the New Testament, and I think I would have called myself a believer then. I wasn't very far into the New Testament. Now I was familiar with the New Testament already, but not nearly as well as I became after that. But the thing that convinced me as I was reading the Bible, um, there's a whole bunch of different things. It helped a lot that I had rethought as I was doing this. I was like rethinking the old arguments for the existence of God. It's like I couldn't help myself. It's like, wow, like understanding aspects of them that I had never considered. I taught the subject twice as an agnostic, right? So that really cleared away a lot of the problems. And I had also started like, well, I was talking to God, like, so it's, just pretending that I was having a conversation with God, and that actually became prayer eventually. But I thought I would do that in order to to mull over certain things, just and then and then and that's just something that I sort of fell into after a month or so, and then after starting to read the Bible, I mean. But no, the thing that like really made a difference to me that like I didn't understand is like really eye-opening. First of all, the Bible is an amazing book. It's absolutely incredible. It is extremely profound. It's more profound than these people who call it like the work of Bronze Age shepherds understand. It's far deeper than that, and it's provable, right? And there are reasons why it's possible to sustain a like 2,000-year-old tradition of theology. It's that profound, deep, and just good. So the thing that amazed me the most is that um, um, there are a series of references to the anointed, which were Messiah prophecies, and I'm sure I didn't get all of them, but so many of them are just absolutely on the nose with regard to Jesus, right? And I knew enough about the life of Jesus to know that before I even like read Matthew practically, I just had to like read Matthew, which is the first book of the New Testament, to like remind myself of these things. And it's like, wow, the, those prophecies were made before the New Testament was made. That those prophecies were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which Christians had nothing to do with, for sure, definitely. All right, and
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so anyway.
That's great. Okay. No, that's great because it's and it's an interesting thing, and the reason I even asked that is, and it's very interesting in this world that engineering and politics and all of the things, with startups or with projects like Encyclosphere, with projects like Dragonchain. I didn't expect to get into that sphere at all, but I know that, like, say, when we get on we have a weekly show called World Blockchain Roundtable,
Uh-huh.
and we tend to get into much more philosophical discussions because it's so directly impacting what we're otherwise should just be a bunch of nerds talking about how to oh yeah, you could do this and here's how you would do it. We end up talking a lot about that, and with current events and everything, because so many of the people that are important and doing things in the world, not just in crypto, but in startups and technology and definitely other industries, are under attack. There's like the powers that
Yep.
be, whoever you want to tag that to be, don't want a lot of this stuff out there that a lot of people you know seem to recognize, that we know people need this. Humans, we're people, no matter where you're in the world. There's
Hmm.
some of these things that this technology can definitely improve lives. It can make everything better, or many things better, and
Hmm.
yet a lot of people with a lot of power don't want that. And I had never, I don't know.
They
Growing
want
up, I
they
just thought you're
they're
supposed to
very
solve
threatened.
problems.
Yes,
Yeah,
they're very threatened by the loss of control.
yeah,
And whenever you hear anyone talk about misinformation and disinformation,
yes,
what they're really complaining about is their own loss of control.
yep. And I want to know what you think, because and maybe this can be maybe the end of it, because I went longer than I even was supposed to. That Sorry about that. That I think it's a very useful tool, and it was kind of natural for me. If I'm told, oh, you can't do this, and I was like, well, why can't I do it? And so, some things, oh, I don't want to do that. I'd never do it anyway. But the things that are either um, harmless, is like, well, why wouldn't somebody be able to do that? And or when something is censored, in particular, when something was censored, they'd say, oh, you can't look at that, or they try to. I would always seek it out, not because I maybe believe what it
Hmm.
is, but because, okay, if it's censored, they don't want you to see it, and so I would go and learn about this other way of looking at whether that subject was. And what I came to is this general thought that, and I don't know, maybe you would know, in a case that I have asked a lot of people and haven't heard an answer, but of any case that a subject, topic, an idea was censored, that it wasn't actually true. In almost every case, if the thing is a crazy conspiracy, flat Earth theory, it's posted all over the place in 4chan. That's not censored at all, right?
Yes,
But
yes,
it's these things that you're not supposed to believe that are
right.
censored, and when you look at them, in my opinion, it's almost like an axiom that, oh, if it's been censored by an appropriately high enough or powerful enough central authority, it's probably true, right? The more the higher that is, and the more censored it is, the more likely it is to be true.
Offhand, I can't think of any examples. Um, yeah,
I'm sure there might be some, but
that might. I'm sure there's some, but yes, yes. Uh, the most famous examples of things that are censored generally tend to be things that people in power don't want people to know. They
yeah,
they don't want them to know them because it's that it's a threat to power, and the truth is, generally speaking, a threat to power when it,
yeah,
well, yeah, when it is. So,
yes. Okay, so we'll end it there, and
okay.
we'll have posted. So I'll ask you if you can send me all the links. Like say, I particularly want to make sure we have links
Sure.
to the appropriate pages on Knowledge Standards Foundation and the Encyclosphere, but also your personal blog and all the rest of that, because all these things related. Anything you want to throw in there, we'll put it into the comments. And that's it. Thanks for this. This was awesome. And
Sure.
maybe we'll get you back on the blockchain roundtable again when it's a reasonable topic that you care about, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're totally random topics that get chosen, but so I'll send that out
Okay.
to you. You can decide. So thanks a bunch. All right.
Okay. Very good. Thanks.